Hi. Everybody. There's gonna be a trigger warning for this, because there's some stuff we're gonna talk about that some fragile people may not be able to handle, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. I just mean that this topic can get toxic, and if it's something that's not for you, then it's something that's not for you, and respect yourself enough to recognize that. This is a lot to unpack. There's a considerable amount of nonsense, and that's mostly the reason why I'm giving a trigger warning, because there's some nonsense in here that I think is going to just have your face palm protection ready. Okay, just make sure you have your face palm protection ready. This has 403.1k views. I don't imagine this is going terribly well. So I'll read out what she's responding to. I'm gonna let it play on its own, and then we'll talk about it. And then we'll go back and we're kind of start breaking it down. But I think it's kind of important to experience this at least once before you've heard anything from anybody. So the question, or what she's responding to says, or he isn't attracted to bigger girls, like how some people aren't attracted to smaller girls. Everyone's entitled to their own preferences. Face. Alright. Alright. I'm gonna hit play.
Hey, bestie! You're wrong. I think it's time for another adult pre-K lesson. What do you think? All right, turn your listening ears on. Catch a bubble in your mouth. Good job. Okay, here's the thing. Having a preference is something like, I'm looking for a partner who likes kayaking, or wakes up early in the morning, or loves pizza. But when your preferences exclude an entire group of marginalized people, that's problematic. Okay, that's not nice. That's not a preference. If you lump all fat people in one group together as though they are not very different individuals, that's fatphobic. Just like lumping all black people in one group and saying, I don't like black people, is racist. And lumping all disabled people in one group and saying, I don't think people in wheelchairs are hot, is ableist. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hey, bestie! You're wrong.
That face, though. I don't know what to tell ya. Well, that was it. That was the whole clip. This is the whole video that she put out. I haven't gone to look at her socials or check out any of her other stuff, because I don't think I want to, because I feel like it's going to do nothing but cause me pain. But there's a few things in here that are telling just right off the bat. One of them is that she mistakes somebody's preferences of physicality and equates them to personality traits. So if somebody is like, oh, I like pizza, I'm chill, I don't like going to fancy restaurants, that's not what anybody's talking about when it comes to what you find physically attractive. And the thing is, there's also a difference between having a preference and saying you're never going to date anybody that has this trait. So I don't think you can compare being overweight for being marginalized for racism. I imagine that didn't go over well. Yeah, I don't think, considering there are people that are getting killed in the streets because of the color of their skin, I don't know if that's happening to anybody who's obese. Maybe it is, but I have not heard of anything of the sort. So I'm not sure about that one. So, just because you have a preference to one way doesn't mean you wouldn't date somebody who is overweight, let's say. So, if I have a preference for, I tend to find lighter toned skin, as an example, or I prefer blonde hair, for example, it doesn't mean you dislike anybody who doesn't have blonde hair. It doesn't mean you dislike anybody who doesn't have fair skin. Preferences like this are shallow for the majority of people. In most cases, it's like, this is a preference, but it's not a deal breaker. Usually if people are talking about a deal breaker, they say, it's a deal breaker. Intrigued Feline says, in most cases, weight is something that can be tackled and worked at. Skin color is not. So there are people who suffer from addictions. There are people who are on medications that cause them to bloat or cause them to put on an incredible amount of weight, and there's nothing they can do about it. We're going to take those people and we're going to put them in a box over here. I'm going to marginalize these people out because you're not the fault of those people. Like, this woman is not this group of people's problem. This is welcome to insecurities, the person. So somebody not being attracted to larger girls does not mean they hate you or would not date you. The reason they're not dating you probably has nothing to do with how you look. It probably has 100% to do with you're kind of crazy and sound like a bitch. Alright. Somebody said, I think for dating purposes, even racist preferences are okay. So, you run into two things when you're talking about dating when it comes to preferences of race. And that is fetishization, when you fetishize a race, and you refuse to date somebody because of their race. So that could be a cultural thing, or it could be a hate-based thing. And the cultural thing could be a hate-based thing. And so some examples are like, people tend to be really bad about this when it comes to Asian people for some reason, and I think that's probably because of, toxic anime stuff. At least some of it comes from there, where it's like, oh, well, there's this expectation of Asian women to be and behave in a certain way and look in a certain way. Yeah, that's racist. Just because they're Asian doesn't mean they're going to necessarily have these personality traits, right? And so you need to treat people as individuals. But that has nothing to do with having an overarching preference, right? It's when you have an expectation and you've made your decision based on an expectation that is unrelated, right? There's a difference between, I find these particular facial features attractive, and I don't want to date somebody from that race because I don't like that race, right? So let's take a look at, you're wrong. Oh, okay. Maybe she'll tell us why. She got very aggressive very quickly. Clearly not one for discussion. She's going to tell us how it is in the most condescending manner possible. So let's the tone. Listen, I'm not going to tone police her, but I am going to say she's being condescending. I'm not going to say she can't be condescending. I'm just going to say she is.
I think it's time for another adult pre-K lesson. What do you think?
If it's time for adult pre-K lessons, I can break out my crayons. Because I feel like she'll probably need them, but given her argumentation, she's probably eating those crayons.
All right, turn your listening ears on. Catch a bubble in your mouth. Good job. Okay, here's the thing. Having a preference is something like, I'm looking for a partner who likes kayaking, or wakes up early in the morning, or loves pizza.
Okay, she's very confused. Let's crack up those crayons. Kayaking and getting up in the morning are lifestyle choices. Liking pizza is something completely different. If I choose, or I tend to be a morning person, that may be something that I've put effort in and can control. If I enjoy kayaking, that's a hobby. if I like, I can do all of those things and like pizza. You see the difference here, right? Somebody can't be this weight and that weight at the same time, but somebody can like kayaking and like getting up in the morning and enjoy pizza all at the same time. You can't sit around and be like, hey, listen, I like people who like kayaking but also hate kayaking. If you don't like people who hate kayaking, you're pro kayaking and that's bad for the environment and you're an awful person. I don't know. Like, it's absurd. That was my favorite part of pre-K. Coloring?
But when your preferences exclude an entire group of marginalized people, that's...
Okay, so marginalized people. What rights do you not have? Are we going back to the Olympics argument about people being allowed in the Olympics and the Olympics for some reason being considered a human right? Because being in the Olympics isn't a right. It's something you can succeed at and work towards, but not everybody gets to join the Olympics. So, in what way are you marginalized besides the fact that lots of people do not wish to be obese? Do you know what I mean? Like, most people, I think, don't desire Shane Armstrong. So by not being gay, you're automatically homophobic. Yeah, pretty much. There's... Yeah, that's beyond condescension. She sounds like she has issues in the past and internalized some pain. Some people are bad at rejection. 40% of the US population is obese. How is that marginalized? I don't know how you're being marginalized. Somebody not wanting to have sex with you and not wanting to date you or not terribly finding you attractive is not marginalizing you. That's treating you as an individual. Somebody saying, hey, listen, I'm not really into overweight people could have to do with looks. It could also have to do with lifestyle choices. If you've got somebody who really enjoys running and hiking and climbing and kayaking, for example, then there's a decent chance they're not going to be terribly attracted to overweight people because they will not be able to maintain or keep up with that lifestyle. If they want the person that they're with to join them in those activities. If they don't, and they don't care, then fine. Or if they're dating somebody who wants to improve, then that's also fine. All of these things are okay, though. There's none of this list is not all right. It's not, hun, it is not your weight that people are finding not attractive. It's your insecurities and your desire to project those things onto other people to make yourself feel better. Well, if people don't like me, they're just a bad person. That's not how that works. People cannot like you and still be perfectly fine human beings. Sometimes it's nothing personal. Sometimes people don't like you just because they just kind of don't like you, and they're just like, nah, not for me, sorry. Being rejected does not mean that they necessarily hate you. And I think that's something that people, because liking somebody and explaining that you like somebody and coming forward and trying to have that conversation or trying to date is very personal and very personalized. Being rejected feels very personal. They've rejected you. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's just they've got other stuff. It's about them more than it's about you a lot of the time. You know, unless you're a crazy bitch and everybody's rejecting you because nobody wants to handle your crazy ass. That's sometimes the case, but outside of those situations, a lot of times if somebody's rejecting you, it's simply because they're not available to you. And it doesn't mean that they hate you. It doesn't mean they dislike you. It doesn't mean that they're not interested in you as a person. There's a gradient there. Rejection is not hatred. It doesn't have to be. if I say, oh, do you like tomatoes or potatoes? And you say, I like potatoes. Well, how dare you? Why do you hate tomatoes? Well, you never said you hated tomatoes. You said you liked potatoes. Saying that you like something doesn't mean you dislike something unrelated, right? So, but if you say, hey, I have a preference for something, it also doesn't mean that you're saying you dislike the thing that you don't have a preference for. Listen, I don't have a preference for blonde hair. Does that mean I dislike everybody or hate everybody who has blonde hair? No, Karma's fantastic. I love Karma. Are you kidding? Why would I suddenly write off everybody with blonde hair as bad people? That's not what's going on here. But that's how she's phrasing it, and it makes me curious as to why you're phrasing it. Why do you think people hate you? Is it because they have reasons to hate you and you don't want to accept what may or may not be personality flaws, or that people dislike in you as a personality, and so you make it about something that you feel like you have no control over? I don't know enough about this woman to know whether or not her weight is something that she could control, or if she's part of that box over there. But if you are in a position, I have blonde hair and blue eyes, but I'm not German. How dare you? How dare you? Lady, it's not on society to accept you for who you are. It's up to you to decide who you want to be, and then let the cards where they fall where they may. You're not, as long as you aren't being treated like absolute garbage because of just your weight, there's nothing wrong going on. If you're being treated poorly because you're fat, then that's dumb, and that person's an idiot. But is society doing that? That seems bizarre. It seems to me that you've been rejected for a few times, and you've internalized that to have to do with your body, and in doing so, you can't handle that, and so you're projecting that onto everybody else to say that, oh, well, anybody who doesn't like me is just a bad person because it's dumb not to like somebody just based on their weight. It's like, that's not the reason why people don't like you, if that's what's happening. I guarantee it. Being obese is not a marginalized group either in the United States. Yeah, I'm not sure where this woman is from. She sounds like she's from America, but... Should we listen to more to what she has to say? There's a lot to unpack here.
That's problematic. Okay, that's not nice. That's not a preference.
Oh, it's not nice. So if it's not nice, it can't be. That's not how that works. Something can be not nice and be a preference. Nobody has to like you. You're the one who presents yourself to society and to individuals, and those individuals then get to decide whether they accept you or not. They're not required to accept you. They're not allowed to treat you like shit because they've rejected you for whatever reason. You still have to be treated as a human being and have basic rights, because of course you should and you ought to. You shouldn't be treated like the cops shouldn't be banging down your door and shooting you while you're asleep. That's not a thing that should be happening. However, that doesn't mean everybody has to be attracted to you. That's just not how that works. It's just not how that works. I'd be curious to know what someone like this thinks about somebody who was overweight, who has decided that they don't want to be anymore and has put in the work to no longer be that weight. Do they think that that person is fat phobic and awful for doing so? Do they shame that person for trying to live comfortably in their own body? Because this is some toxic bullshit. Like, this is toxic in a dangerous way towards people that you may not consider. This is toxic towards people who have some kind of metabolism issue, who can't control their weight, because now there's a decent chance that people will see that person and think of this lady. what's the your this is harmful towards skinny women and men. This is harmful towards, you can't dictate to men whether or not they find you attractive. So if they're obligated to like you, are you then obligated to have sex with everybody who likes you? Is that the case? Like, it's gotta, if it goes one way, it's gotta go the other way. So does that mean this woman is required or obligated socially to have sex with anybody who asks? Or does she have to like everybody? Is that the case? That she has to be attracted to everyone? Is that how that works? Like, what is the standard she's setting here? And would she be able to meet that standard herself? Because I feel like the answer is probably no.
If you lump all fat people in one group together as though they are not very different individuals.
I'm not talking about individuals. I'm sure that I've met people who are overweight that I think are lovely, and I've also met people who are overweight who are angry and because they're angry, they're very aggressive and toxic people, and I don't want to be around them. And I'm not saying they're angry because of their weight, but they are angry. And so, I mean, I've met skinny people who are angry, who are toxic, that I don't want to be around. I've met lots of people who are just toxic nonsense people, and I don't want to deal with them as individuals. That doesn't mean I can't acknowledge what I do and do not find attractive, because again, you notice the bait and switch there. There's a bait and switch of, this guy's not attracted to bigger girls. They have a preference, and that's fine. And she's like, no, if you have that preference, you hate me as an individual. And it's like, nobody said having a preference isn't a deal breaker. That doesn't mean that guy wouldn't date an overweight person. It just means that they have a preference towards not people who are overweight. That doesn't make any sense, right? There's a bait and switch. There's switching preference to hatred and marginalizing of a group. That's not happening. If you're going to say that, then you also need to treat the people who have these preferences as individuals also, which means they all may have different reasoning for why they may be unattracted or have a preference towards people who are not overweight. They could have been overweight themselves, and they could have some kind of trigger around certain foods or around certain behaviors that they used to do when they were overweight. And so being around overweight people is difficult for them because it's too easy to slip back into bad habits. Right? Are you saying that those people have to date somebody who's overweight? And they have to be attracted to something that causes them trauma? Where's the line here? This is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense. I'm not drunk enough for I'm taking this too seriously. This lady's crazy. These are the kind of people that shit on girl. Like, just stop shitting on women for their bodies in general. How about that? If you want to be positive about things, then be realistic. If you're in the dangerous weight category, you need to acknowledge that you're in a dangerous weight category and not shit on people so that people are afraid of being bullied by people like you because they choose to get out of that dangerous weight category. I've known people who prefer chubby women. There's nothing wrong with that. I know women that are like they're not fat, but they're very large. Like, they're just large people, and so they're like 6 foot tall, 6'3" women who are like built like a truck, and it's like, hot damn, that's amazing. And they're not unattractive people. They're fantastic and amazing people, and like it has nothing to do with whether or not you're gonna find, if you want to find somebody who likes you, find somebody who likes you, not somebody you feel that you've bullied into liking you, because how dare you not like me, you fat hater. What an absurd point of view to have. It just doesn't follow. In any time you try to follow this logic train, you get like one step and you fall flat. I'm a failure. Like, there is no train here to follow. It's just nonsense. I honestly do not think that this woman would follow this if it was applied to herself.
That's fatphobic. Just like lumping all black people in one group and saying, I don't like black people is racist.
You really should not compare these two things. This is not a good look. That is not a good comparison.
And lumping all disabled people in one group and saying, I don't think people in wheelchairs are hot, is ableist.
Okay. There is so much to unpack just in this small little bit. Just this little bit we just listened to. This, I think Exploratory Minds Project is correct. It's pure 100% insecure emotion-driven bias. Yes. This is insecurity the person. And they're trying to essentially deal with that insecurity by making it everybody else's fault and everybody else's problem. Your bullshit is nobody else's problem, and nobody has to accept you. Nobody has to accept you. They can't treat you like you're not a human, but nobody has to like you. You choose to present yourself to society and how you present yourself, whether that be as a man, whether that be as a woman, whether that be sexual orientation, whether that be I like to wear dark clothing, whether that be I like to wear light clothing, whether or not that you like to wear a lot of makeup, whether you dislike makeup, whether you dye your hair, whether you have tattoos. You present yourself to society and you choose how to present yourself to society. Nobody has to fucking like you. You can choose to make changes so more people will be more accepting towards you if you want, but you don't have to. But I guarantee you the majority of things, especially once you're, out of high school, it has more to do with how you behave rather than how you look. We don't live in the 1950s anymore. We're not living in a time period this is 2021. People will maybe not approach you depending on how you hold yourself and present yourself, but if you show up in a rainbow jumpsuit to a funeral and it's not that kind of funeral, you're gonna get side looks and you're gonna deserve it. Right? There are social expectations, but being overweight is not that big of a deal. It might be personally, but it might be a big deal for you, but on the grand scheme of things, most people don't care that you're fat. Most people will care that you're being a bitch because you're imposing your shit on them. Now they have to deal with your nonsense. Nobody has to accept you. Like I said, they can't treat you like garbage. They still have to treat you like you're a human being. They can't, they shouldn't bully you. They ought to defend themselves from you if this is your behavior on a regular. If this is how you behave in your real life, you're the bully. This is not make your OnlyFans free or you're poverty phobic. Yeah, right, exactly. This is the kind of thing that people do not understand. A lot of people do not understand. Society and individuals do not have to accept you outside of the basic societal standards that society decides on to treat everybody. So, if you have blonde hair, you should not be ostracized because you have blonde hair. If you're overweight, you should not be ostracized for that. You should still be treated well and kindly, and you should have access to food and water, and you should be allowed to vote. Are you gonna get picked for the softball team? Maybe. Maybe not. Depends on the softball team. They might be an amateur softball team and they might not care, and so you'd be perfectly accepted there. Or maybe you're trying to go for a professional team that's like, sorry, you don't make the cut, you won't be able to make the bases, and we're worried for your health. And so they might be rejecting you because they're concerned for you, not necessarily because they're concerned for them. If you're going to judge you can't sit there and say, oh, don't judge everybody while you sit there judging everybody who doesn't find you attractive. You're absurd. Nobody's required to find you attractive. Nobody even has to like you. You could live your whole life with everybody hating you, and that's nobody's responsibility. Does that mean you ought to change yourself to be accepted? If you want, sure. If you don't want to, don't. And there's a degree of who and how much you ought to change for the people around you. Sometimes you shouldn't change anything because the people around you are the assholes. And sometimes maybe you should check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because sometimes you are the problem. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's your attitude. And sometimes you just need to check that. And that's okay. It's alright. It's okay. Everything will be fine. Just stop being a bitch.
You understand what I'm saying?
Nobody understands what you're saying, because what you're saying is nonsense. Alright. That's it. That's all for me. This is only going to be like a half an hour. This is not a terribly long clip. There's more in there. You could probably pick up this is a 1 minute clip. Maybe stop being a condescending bitch to people that are actually just having a conversation and having perfectly fine opinions. Listen, if you dress up as a punk, you're trying to express that you're going against society. So if people are treating you in a way because your attitude and your presentation is anti-authority, and authority doesn't look too kindly on you, you're not allowed to complain about it. That's what you wanted. Stop being stupid. That's absurd. Don't be like, oh no, I dressed and behaved in a certain way to garner this attention. No, I've gotten this attention. I understand what she's saying, but to quote her, you're wrong. I don't know if she actually understands what she's saying. I would love to have this person on to have a conversation about this and be like, okay, listen, explain to me step by step what your expectation is. Now explain to me why you do not find this person or that person attractive. You tell me, do you have preferences? Why are your preferences okay and that person's preferences not? Or do you not have any preferences? And if you don't have any preferences, how? How have you managed to go through your life without having any preferences, especially towards sexuality? Are you straight? Well, then I guess you have a preference, don't you? Are you bi? If you're bi, then yeah, you may have a preference. You can be bi and have a preference one way or the other. That's fine. You could be gay. Do you have a preference for being gay? If you're gay, are you anti-lesbians? Oh, you're gay. Oh, so you hate women. What? No, that's not how that works. And that's not even a preference. That's not even a choice. That's just... I don't want to have sex with women. Well, how dare you hate women then? What did I say I hated women? I just don't want to sleep with them. I just don't want to be in a relationship. Asexual people exist, yeah. Yeah, you can be asexual. Does that mean you hate everybody? Kyle hates women, confirmed. Listen, Kyle hates a lot of things. Generally have no sexual preferences, as they have no sexual inclinations whatsoever. Well, that's fine. That means they have a preference that's biased against everybody else. They hate everyone equally. She doesn't understand what she's saying. She's mad due to her struggles to find a romantic relationship and transfers the faults to everyone but her. I would be curious to know what kind of a relationship she's looking for. Like, what if this is your attitude, do you expect to never be rejected? Or do you just externalize your internal frustration when you do get rejected? Because that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like she has an internalized frustration, and I don't want to call it denial. I don't want to call it that far, but like it seems to me that she's been rejected, she gets hurt, and then instead of looking internally at why she's getting rejected, she just assumes and then says, well, the other people are bad for rejecting me. That's what it seems to me. And I mean, okay, but why does anybody care? Why ought anybody care what this woman says? Why should we take her seriously? Why would it be beneficial to listen to what she has to say and then behave in the manner in which she wishes people to behave? What does that look like? Does that look like her getting a lot of Valentine's Day cards? What does this mean? Does this mean she wants attention? From whom? Everyone? Or, like, what? Usually when I see things like this, I get confused or concerned about what this person actually views as, what is acceptance to this person then? What does somebody need to do for her to consider that they've accepted her? Because I mean, I accept her for what she is. I have now an expectation for her behavior, and I trust that she's going to behave in this manner in the future. So I trust and accept her. Why? But I would expect she would view this video and what I've said as rejection. I reject her position. I reject her argumentation because it's garbage. But it makes no sense if you think about it for longer than 30 seconds. And it's so emotionally driven that it's lost all realistic meaning. But that certainly doesn't mean that I would not sit down and have a conversation and try to assist her in sussing out her point of view and her argumentation in a way that it would make logical sense, in a way that it would follow, so that way maybe people would be more willing or more able to accept her position. But accepting her position isn't the same as accepting her. Neither is rejecting her position. I can reject her position all day and still think she's probably a fine person. I mean, I might not want to hang around her, but I would assume there are people, there's probably 4 types of people that are around her and her, like, her channel and stuff, like her followers. They're either people that are suffering the same insecurities that she is, people who are, like, essentially keyboard warriors that think they're helping when they're actually encouraging really shit behavior and really bad habits. So, like, these are the self-righteous people who do nothing and be annoying on the internet. Oh, I'm part of a cause. Look at, I typed a thing. I've done my good deed for the day. That type of people. So people, self-righteous people who are actually useless, people who are suffering the same insecurities that she is, people who are there for the lols. Those would probably be the 3. I think I said 4, but I could probably break it down to those 3. Any of the people following her fall into those 3 categories, probably. I don't think that encouraging this position nor this behavior is very... Oh, maybe the 4th one is like people who are actually against entirely, that are following just to be like, no, like people who are trying to have the conversation. There's probably a few earnest people sprinkled in there, but John says, but I have a great personality. No, you don't. You're condescending and fake, hence the false bubbly persona she tries to act out. I'm trying not to judge what her personality might actually be based on this video because she's clearly presenting this in a way. So I don't know how she actually is as a person because I haven't watched any of her other content. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if she does have that, like, yeah, guys, isn't that great? Yo, look what I got today. Isn't it? It's fantastic. I'm really high energy and I'm really excited and I'm bubbly all the time. You guys totally should subscribe. It'd be really great. I would love it so much. You guys are fantastic. I love you guys. I can't wait to bring you all the content that I have coming out. I don't have the energy for that. I also don't care. You guys know what to expect here. Goblin things. Steve Potts says, I think people, sorry, Steven, my mistake. I think people actually listening to what she says looks rather chaotic. I don't think there was much logic or thought put into what she has to say. I agree. I think she's got a very emotional response, and so she's kind of responding emotionally, and she doesn't have a very well thought out. She's expressing how she feels, not a position that could actually be defended. And I think treating it as such is... I'm kind of discrediting it a little bit by taking it too seriously, but at the same time, I'm giving it more credit than it probably deserves by treating it too seriously, but I'm also noticed that I haven't actually taken the... I haven't taken too much time on her argumentation, and I'm focusing a little bit more on why. But why, though? Let me explain why this little bit doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? Let's see. John then said to Exploratory Minds, yes, she gets rejected because unfortunately she doesn't live up to society's current measures of beauty, gets sad but resentful. Then when she finds someone who is attracted to her, the resentfulness comes out, and the dude, like, dip I'm out. Steven says that that leads to my other thought on this. What she's saying could have been speaking to her audience and what they want to hear and expect to an extent. Yeah, there's a degree of, like, a character being played here. Killer says, her personality in the clip is enough for me to know I would not be friends with her and even more unlikely to do the mating dance with her. I think that's fair. Because again, you choose how you present to people. She had to record this. This is a TikTok. You record it, you can put editing stuff on it, and you put it out. This isn't like she was candid at a bar and said some dumb things. I'm usually pretty lenient, pretty like whatever about somebody said a dumb thing while they were drunk at a bar, because people are dumb and they say dumb things, and I don't take a lot of it too seriously. I know there's a lot of like people when they're drunk tend to loosen their lips a little bit and say how they feel rather than what they mean, or they actually say what they feel without any kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Any kind of filter. So like Team Skeptic. Right, Team Skeptic got on that live stream, got drunk, got trashed, and like just shit talked. But how seriously are we gonna take that? Who cares? I mean, you can take from it that he's mad about some very particular situations with some very particular people, but I'm not gonna take it that seriously, even if I'm the person he's mad at. I don't give a shit. Oh my god, who cares? Drunk people are mad. Shocking. What? Oh no. Mr. Serious says, this sounds like that kind of argument a femcel would make, or maybe someone just before becoming a femcel. She needs to own some of her problems before she falls down a dark path. So there is a degree of self-awareness and a degree of self-reflection that some people just don't do. They're just not able to do so. Brittany Simon has actually a really interesting breakdown where she breaks it down by 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And I think there's 5. And I definitely recommend go and checking that out. Go check out Brittany Simon's channel over there. It's actually quite good. I really enjoyed the breakdown. I think she's fantastic. I would love to get in a conversation with her one of these days. Eventually. It will happen one day, I believe. What good is a trigger warning if you don't say what it'll be? I don't know. It's not that useful. You got a point, Smitty. When the artist I work with and I did a table at a convention, I was exhausted for days after, just trying to be more personal. Yeah, so some people can do it. Some people can have that. Like, I'm pretty high energy most of the time. Like, just doing this is me putting in effort and putting in energy. To that degree, I couldn't do that for like 2 hours or an hour. I could not do it. Mostly because I don't care to, and secondly, that there's an amount of endurance that you have to make. This is the difference between live streaming and videos. If you're doing produced videos, you can take your time and be that character a lot easier than you could trying to be that character live. Otherwise, you get into this trouble where you start blending together. I talked about this with Claire, actually, who just popped in. Hi, Claire. We talked about Marilyn Manson. When you have to spend so much time being a character and you get so much positive reinforcement for being that character that you start to become that character, if that makes sense. I mean, I could sit here and I could do this and I could be really happy and upbeat and I can bring my voice up and bring it. I don't like talking like that, but I can bring my voice up and I can talk like this and I can have the whole stream just like this, guys, and it'll be fine. And I can do that, and I'm talking a little bit quickly, but I could slow that down a little bit and I could just be really far more bubbly and far more animated. And sometimes I am, because I have that kind of energy and the situation warrants that kind of energy. And, you know, that's great and all, but I'm still not gonna stay at that level because I don't like to present myself that way. I don't like to be that way. It's not relaxing to me. I like talking to you guys candidly. I like talking to you guys as Goblin to person. And if you live your life enforcing a stereotype or enforcing an ideal of yourself instead of accepting yourself for who you are and then making whatever changes that you feel are necessary to yourself because you're able to reflect and have some self-awareness, that's great. But if that's not something you want to do and you don't want to self-reflect, and if you're scared of it, or if it's not something that you're interested in, or you just flat out don't fucking care, that's all fine. You're allowed to live your life that way, and nobody should be telling you that you shouldn't live your life that way. But what you ought not to do is take your nonsense and try and shove it down other people's throats, because it's not their fucking problem. They don't have to accept you. Fuck off. The world doesn't have to accept you. They have to acknowledge that you exist. They have to acknowledge that you've had a lived experience, and that's great. You've lived your experience that way, and I acknowledge that this is your perception of the experience that you've had, if you decide to describe it to me, and if I choose to watch it. But I don't have to accept you. I don't have to like you. Nobody has to like you. Stop putting whether or not you're accepted and liked as a responsibility onto other people. People don't have to fucking like you. It's okay. In fact, there's the old adage that you can't please everybody, right? Not everybody's gonna like you. And I think that's kind of a negative way of viewing that. I don't think it's wrong. I do think there's another, maybe what I find is a little bit more positive way to view it. And there are gonna be people that don't like you. So choose who those people are. Make sure that the people who don't like you are the people that you don't want to like you. That's what I do. There are people that absolutely fucking hate me. Good. I wanted them to hate me. And in doing so, it gives me entire control over the situation. It's weird, isn't it? Isn't that interesting? Isn't it weird how that works? Ball's in my court. Always. Why does she want people who don't want to accept her to be forced into accepting her? What kind of a relationship would she even get in that scenario? Yeah, exactly. That would be an interesting conversation to have with this woman. I would be very curious to know what her ideal man and what her ideal relationship looks like, and see if her behavior and her expression here, or her, I don't know what her general, I don't know if this is a one-off for her or not. I'm not gonna be judgy. If you want to If you want to find her, her TikTok is at Lexinimo. I don't know. LEXINIMMO. So if you guys wanted to go look, you could go look. But you have control over who likes you and who doesn't to a degree, right? You can't force people to like you, but you definitely can force people to dislike you. And you can do things that make, you can do things that will make it more likely that people will like you. You can be more charismatic. You can speak differently. You can present yourself in a way that people may or may not be find more accessible. And when you're accessible, people will be more likely to open up to you. And if you are relaxed and non-judgmental, if you most people just want to be understood. Most people just want people to listen to what they've said and understand what they're saying. This woman isn't asking for advice. She's not asking for an argument. She's not looking for anybody to disagree with you. She's trying to tell you how she feels about this particular situation. She's not doing a very good job at expressing herself. Well, depending on at least for other people to understand, because I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of people who are mad and upset and annoyed by this. Rightfully so, because when you communicate in such a belligerent and toxic manner and are pushing ideals onto other people that they have to do something, people don't have to do shit. The world doesn't owe you fucking nothing. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, and my shitty agreeing tells you that no, I really don't. It's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. If you want to have positive and valuable relationships with people, then you need to take steps that will put you in a position that will allow you to do so. It's not on everybody else to cater and move to fit you. Because why should they? Give them one reason. Give them one reason why they should do that. They don't have to. Whatever. That's all my sage advice for today. I don't have any more sage advice. This is the Goblin sage advice of the day. Maybe I should do a ask a Goblin, and you guys can ask me life questions. Like, what's that? Are those articles on that used to be in the newspaper that's like Ask Trudy or whatever? Send me all that shit. That'd be some funny nonsense. I don't even care if it's made up. I did say I was wrapping up 30 minutes ago, and then I got on a different tangent. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. That way I can keep it under an hour, or at an hour, or about an hour. Whatever. Whatever, man. Don't attack me like that. I didn't do nothing. I don't deserve this. Do goblins eat deep-fried trolls? Well, you know. I hope this advice no one asked for, like a dose of Buckley. Yes, correct. I mean, when you put stuff out on the internet, people are going to be able to respond to it. It's just whether or not that response is reasonable or if that response is harassment. I'm not going to tell anybody to go over and harass this woman. Why? She's clearly having enough problems on her own. She doesn't need any help. She got some boobies, though. Alright, I'm gonna get out of here before I get myself in trouble. I'll talk to you guys later. I will see you next time. I'll be live Monday night at 7 p.m. for Dungeons & Dragons fundraiser charity streams. I'll see you on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. No Caffeine Corner or Judgment Call on Monday afternoon because Steve's away. Also, we'll back to our regular scheduled programming on Tuesday. So I will see you guys next week, and I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. And I hope none of you come across any kind of nonsense like this for the rest of your weekend, and be blessed with reasonable stuff instead of be blessed with non-nonsense. Mwah! Okay, guys, I'm gonna take off. I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Become a member if you want to see more of me. Bye now. Ugh.